Right, here we are again. Pants on fire, running for me life. Except it wasn't pants, it was more like this blasted heat suit. This whole planet was a sauna. Behind me I heard those high-pitched shrieks. The Xylarian women were gaining on me. They looked humanoid, mostly. But their skin was this shimmering blue, and their eyes glowed with an internal light. Not exactly your cuppa, you know, especially when they're chasing you through a maze of glowing flora with energy nets. Don't ask me how I got here. It's a long story. I ducked behind a giant pulsating mushroom, my chest heaving. Bad move. The blasted thing let out a cloud of spores that smelled like old socks. Worse, the spores made me sneeze, a loud, echoing achoo that gave away my position. The shrieks were closer now, laced with a tinkling laughter that sent chills down my spine. Crikey, I was never going to live this down, captured by a bunch of blue women. What a way to go. I made a run for it, dodging glowing vines that seemed to reach out for me like the fingers of some unseen monster. I leaped over steaming puddles, the heat from them almost singeing my legs as I barely made it across. But it was no use. They were too fast, too agile, their movements almost a blur as they closed the distance between us. Suddenly, a net of shimmering azure light shot out from the trees, wrapping around me like a sticky cobweb, immobilizing me instantly. I struggled, but it was no use. The more I fought, the tighter it held, constricting my movements until I could barely breathe. They surrounded me then, their glowing eyes studying me with a mixture of curiosity and amusement, as if I were some rare specimen. Their leader, taller than the rest, with silver streaks in her blue hair, approached with an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. She had a strange air of authority about her, and her voice, when she spoke, was surprisingly melodic, almost hypnotic. "The prophecy is fulfilled," she declared, her words echoing in the strange acoustics of the cavern we were in. "The Skyfallen has arrived." The others murmured in agreement, their voices like the tinkling of wind chimes, creating an eerie, harmonious sound. Skyfallen? Prophecy? What in the blazes were they on about? My mind raced, trying to make sense of their words. I tried to play it cool, you know, nonchalant, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. "Look, lovelies, bit of a misunderstanding this is. Just passing through, cosmic tourist, you get me?" I said, trying to sound casual. They didn't get me. They just stared, their glowing eyes never leaving mine, as if they were trying to peer into my very soul. They dragged me through a series of tunnels, their rough hands gripping my arms tightly. The glowing flora illuminated our path, casting eerie shadows on the walls. We finally arrived at a vast cavern, its size overwhelming and almost surreal. The ceiling was so high it was lost in shadow, making the space feel infinite. In the center stood an enormous crystal, pulsing with an inner light that illuminated the entire chamber, casting a soft, mesmerizing glow. This was the heart of their city, Xyla, carved meticulously into the heart of a giant crystal cave, a marvel of natural and crafted beauty. And there, at the foot of the crystal, was a throne unlike any I had ever seen. Not your typical golden throne, mind you. This one was unique, almost otherworldly. It was formed from the crystal itself, glowing with an ethereal light that seemed to pulse with life. The leader of the women approached the throne with a sense of purpose, then gestured for me to follow her. I wasn't sure what game they were playing, but I was starting to get a rather bad feeling about this whole situation. "By the ancient laws of Xyla," the leader announced, her voice echoing in the chamber, resonating with authority, "the Skyfallen shall be our—" She paused, drawing in a breath, as if to let the weight of her words sink in. "Our king!" The word hung in the air, heavy with significance, echoing in the vast chamber. The other women gasped, and murmurs rippled through the chamber. "King? Me?" It seemed impossible. I nearly choked on my own spit, the shock of the announcement hitting me like a tidal wave. The leader, whose name I learned was Lyra, explained their predicament in a calm yet urgent manner, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. It seems Xylar was ruled by a council of wise women, guardians of ancient knowledge. An ancient prophecy spoke of a Skyfallen who would one day arrive from the stars to become their king, a savior in their time of need. And guess who fit the bill? Yours truly, the bloke who tripped over a root and fell out of his blasted spaceship, making a less than graceful entrance. The prophecy was vague, apparently, but It mentioned a being not of Xylar, touched by the light of 1,000 suns. It was filled with cryptic verses and ancient symbols that only the council could interpret. Well, I was wearing a sun-reflective suit, wasn't I? It shimmered in the sunlight, casting a radiant glow that seemed almost otherworldly. And I'd been exposed to more than my fair share of solar flares in my travels, each one leaving its mark on my suit and my spirit. So here I was, a reluctant king in a society of blue-skinned alien women, each one looking at me with a mix of hope and skepticism. Life, as they say, is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I'd certainly never planned for this. Lyra, bless her soul, tried to explain the intricacies of Xylarian law and custom. She spoke of traditions, rituals, and responsibilities that seemed both fascinating and overwhelming. It was all a bit much, to be honest. My head spun with the sheer volume of information, something about energy conduits, crystal resonance, and the balance of power. It sounded like a mix of science fiction and ancient magic. All I knew was that I was suddenly responsible for a civilization that made Star Trek look positively primitive. The weight of it all was almost too much to bear, but there was no turning back now. Section 5, The Weight of the Scepter. The coronation was, well, interesting. Instead of a crown, they gave me this glowing scepter. Apparently it channeled the energy of the giant crystal and amplified the thoughts of the user. Brilliant, I thought. A mind control device. Just what every newly minted, utterly clueless king needs. Lyra, bless her cotton socks, seemed to be the only one who wasn't completely gobsmacked by the whole thing. She showed me to my quarters, which were carved into the side of the crystal cave and surprisingly luxurious. She even brought me a plate of something that looked suspiciously like glowing jelly, but tasted surprisingly like strawberry jam. Don't worry, she said, her blue eyes surprisingly kind. We will guide you. The prophecy also speaks of a queen who will rule at your side. A queen, eh? Well, that was a thought. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd stumbled into something far bigger than I could handle. Section 6, Whispers of Rebellion. The first few weeks were a blur of meetings, ceremonies, and attempts to understand Xylarian technology, which was light years ahead of anything I'd ever seen. The women of Xylar were surprisingly adaptable, but I could sense an undercurrent of resentment from some quarters. Not everyone was happy with a male alien king. I overheard whispers of rebellion, of ancient laws being overturned. One day, while exploring the city, I stumbled upon a group of women gathered in a secluded chamber, their faces grim. They were plotting against me, that much was clear. Their leader, a fiery young woman named Zara, met my gaze with open defiance. "You are not one of us," she spat. "You do not understand our ways. We will not be ruled by an outsider." I knew then that my reign would be anything but easy. Section 7, The King's Resolve. I may have been a fish out of water, but I was no stranger to danger. I'd faced down space pirates, outwitted intergalactic smugglers, and even survived a black hole, don't ask. So a bunch of disgruntled alien women weren't going to intimidate me. I decided to confront the problem head-on. I called a meeting of the council, Lyra by my side. I addressed them directly, acknowledging their concerns, but also emphasizing the importance of unity and the fulfillment of the prophecy. I spoke of my desire to learn their ways, to earn their trust, and to lead them into a new era of prosperity. My words seemed to have an effect. Some of the women nodded in agreement, while others still looked skeptical, but at least I had made a start. I had shown them that I was not afraid to face them, to listen to their concerns, and to fight for my place as their king. Section 8, A Queen's Support. Lyra proved to be an invaluable ally. She was intelligent, resourceful, and had a knack for understanding both Xylarian and human nature. She helped me navigate the complexities of their culture, explain the nuances of their language, and advised me on matters of state. One evening, as we were walking through the crystal gardens, she turned to me, her blue eyes sparkling in the light of the glowing flora. "You have done well, Your Majesty," she said, using the formal address for the first time. "You have shown wisdom and courage. The people are beginning to accept you." I couldn't help but smile. "It's not just me, Lyra. You've been a great help." She blushed, a delicate shade of blue, and for a moment our eyes met. There was something there between us, a connection that went beyond king and advisor. Perhaps the prophecy of a queen wasn't so far-fetched after all. Section 9. Towards an uncertain future. As the weeks turned into months, I began to settle into my role as King of Zilar. It wasn't easy, mind you, but I was slowly gaining the respect and even the affection of the people. We faced challenges, of course, both internal and external. There were still those who plotted against me, and the threat of invasion from a neighboring planet loomed large. But I was ready. I had my wits, my courage, and the support of a people who were slowly but surely beginning to see me as their rightful leader. And who knows, perhaps one day I might even find love in this strange, wondrous world beneath the surface of a distant planet. For now, though, there was work to be done, a kingdom to protect and a future to shape. The adventures of the unexpected king were just beginning.